Greetings, friends! Welcome back to another very special episode of the Film Alchemist podcast. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, here for a brief introduction before all the fun begins. If you can take a second right now, leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you find the show, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. That helps us out enormously, battle the algorithmic overlords, and find more people to join us in this alchemy movie tent, guys. We appreciate all of you who've been doing that. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of these podcasts, along with a lot of other fun stuff we're cooking up over there. So make sure to be a subscriber so that when all the fun happens, you'll be first in line. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, and you can find us on all the social media sites that you're on. That's a great way to get a hold of us and let us know about movies you'd like to hear on the show. New, old, double features, themed for a month. If there's a dream guest host you'd like us to get a hold of, we want to know these things, guys. That helps us give you the show that you want and deserve. So we do keep track of all of you that get a hold of us. We thank you. We hear you. We're doing our best. So without further ado, today's very special episode. Today we will be discussing, at the behest of our dear friend, writer and director of I Trapped the Devil, Josh Lobo. Now, if you haven't bought and watched I Trapped the Devil, make sure you go do that right now, too. We also covered I Trapped the Devil on Film Alchemist, so you can find that episode in our back catalog. Josh is one of our nearest and dearest friends. I absolutely love Josh. He's such an awesome guy and good friend of the show. And he just kept championing this movie, Empty Man. And for many reasons, me and a lot of other people just missed this movie because, as you'll hear, there was a long, many steps on the road to getting the Empty Man to us in the version we even got. And it's a fascinating one. And the Empty Man itself, while I did resist, is an absolutely amazing movie and probably one of the most fun horror movies I've watched in a couple years. It really is a stunning movie. So Josh was awesome enough to get us to watch The Empty Man so we could discuss it here on the pod. But not only that, Josh was nice enough to bring a friend. Critic, writer, YouTuber extraordinaire, Chris Stuckmann. An amazing guy. He was so kind to make time for us. He's so funny and insightful. Just a warm, awesome guy that we were lucky and fortunate to spend time with. He really added a lot to the show. So a huge thank you to Chris and Josh for joining us today. It means the world to us. And I'm sure you guys are going to love what they have to say about The Empty Man. So I have to issue a full-throated spoiler alert. We're going all the way in. This is a long one. We really dig deep into The Empty Man. So without further ado, The Empty Man. It was so strange because I was like, I don't think I've seen that in almost any movie, let alone a horror movie, since The Exorcist, right? That was like one of Friedkin's like big things is he's like, you need the stuff in Iraq. And they're like, we desperately want you to cut the shit in Iraq. And he's like, it gives you the otherworldly, setup. But when it cut, I couldn't believe it. I thought I was like a third of the way into the movie.
Yeah, no, it kind of blows my mind because the movie essentially does everything it can to be a financial failure.
Yeah.
It literally.
That's a bold strategy.
They're going out of their way to be a flop. Like they hired an actor who is very talented, but not like a Brad Pitt or something. 2 hour, 17-minute runtime, 30-minute prologue with people who don't show up really for the rest of the movie for the most part. And very few answers. It's like they just came together and said, let's make a movie that fails. but like, I love that though.
Yeah, that does feel like the final days of 20th Century Fox's mantra.
Yeah. But I'm happy though. Like, I'm happy that it stands out in that way. Like, yes. I would prefer a movie that takes this many risks than one that's like, well, we got this 90-minute perfect thing that ticks all the boxes, jump scare every 10 pages. You know, we'll double our production budget, and you know, and you forget about it in a day.
See, how I saw this, and like I really like it's become something of like a personal journey to just like shove this towards as many people as I can. Like it's like, watch
You're the
this,
goddamn receiver. You're the transmitter.
Yeah, my best friend, who's the cinematographer for my movie, he texted me today and he's like, I'm watching that fucking movie. He's like, it better be good. I'm like, yes. He's like, you're the only one I've ever heard talk about it. I'm like, yes, okay. I just remember I was at work, and you know, because I live in Wyoming, and so the pandemic, it's here, but it's a lot less like prevalent. Like there's like right now, you know, as in March, there's no mask mandates, everything's good, there's no active cases here. So in October, when this thing came out, you know, they were just sort of throwing shit at theaters. Like Tenet flopped, fucking Wonder Woman was pushed a million times. And this trailer came out, and the trailer, Empty Man, people just started memeing it, like the Bye Bye Man. And I watched a trailer, and you can see, the thing is, it's like a weird teenage horror movie, but there's like snippets from the Wuhan stuff where it's like in the mountains and people falling off a cliff, and you like watch that and you're like, that's weird, like that doesn't fit. And then I saw on, because like it didn't come to my local theater, it came to the theater in Billings, Montana, which is like 2.5 hours from me. And I just saw that the runtime was like 2 hours and 25 minutes. And I was just like, well, fuck, I gotta go see this. So I bring my
that's the exact opposite reaction of what I did.
I would not have had that reaction. I've been like, nope.
So I bring my girlfriend's little brothers, who are both 16, and they're just sort of like willing to do whatever. They don't give a shit. They're just like, whatever. On Friday night, we drive in a fucking snowstorm, like to a different city in a pandemic, wearing masks, and we go fucking watch this movie.
Yeah,
as a joke, as like it was like ironically to just like make fun of it, and then it ended up being fucking awesome.
Yeah, and then it ends, and you're like, I'm living the Empty Man. I'm driving in snow with cult member kids.
I just spent like 2 months on Twitter being like, the Empty Man is great, but like nobody could watch it because it was dumped in theaters in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, so I kept reading you telling me how good it was, and I was like, he usually doesn't steer me wrong. And I would go to Amazon and be like, oof, 2 hours and 17 minutes. And I would immediately leave every single time. And I think, Chris, you mentioned this on Twitter, but I thought the same thing. I was so traumatized by having to sit through Bye Bye Man in the movie theater.
Yes, sir.
That might be like top 4 or 5 most angry I've ever been watching a movie.
Yeah, it's
I immediately just had Bye Bye Man flashbacks.
Same. And Slender Man and all that, all the mans. Any horror man, Stuckmann. It's all a disaster. And so I go and I look at Lobo's your Twitter feed. I'm just gonna call you Lobo because
yes, that's cool.
And it's like empty man. Like, man, this must be good. This must be. And it wasn't just you though that were. I would see other people who'd be like, hey man, you might actually like this. It's weird and very strange, and you might like. And so you finally texted me the other night, at Lobo, and you were just like, watch Empty Man. You didn't even say that was it. Watch Empty Man, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. So it was great.
It was like a day of reckoning. I swear to God, because like it had been in theaters. I felt like a fucking jackass. I'm just like talking about this. There's like nobody. I know people in LA that haven't like left their house for 6 months, and here I'm like going to the theater as like
longer.
I'm like going to the theater as a joke to like meme some movie, and so it like ends up being awesome. And of course Fox is just like, Disney's like, I don't give a shit, and they don't even put it. It doesn't have a DVD. It doesn't have a Blu-ray. It just like they just dump it. They don't. It's not even on VOD, so nobody can watch this thing. And then like midway through January, it drops, and it was like a fucking day of reckoning because I just started to see people watching it and being like, oh wow, this is dope. And it was like, fuck you, this is mine. Like, get out of here.
You're like the kid with the punk band. You're like,
I was gonna say you're right out of the I listened to that band first. Wow, okay.
So Alex, what did you think of your first viewing? I forced you to watch it too, because I'm like, we're covering this. We got to get loaded.
Forced. You never forced me to watch anything. I watch things voluntarily because we do this show. It was weird. I texted you like probably about like after the prologues, like that's just an amazing thing to watch because again, like it's interesting. Not only does it completely change to like it's Missouri, right, where the movie takes place. Not only does it completely change from Bhutan to Missouri, but then it's like 15 years later, and I was like, "Whoa, we are
I
really
didn't realize
jumping
that
here."
until the second time I watched it.
I was honestly like, okay, so we're just like way like there's absolutely maybe we'll see that weird kid or whatever. Nope, just immediately it's James Badge Dale, the guy who plays the main dude,
James Lasombra.
He's so good.
He really is.
Such...
I texted Griffey and I was like,
good.
it's that guy who's like in everything, and yet no one. He's like you said, he's not the Brad Pitt guy, but he's like when you can't get Brad Pitt, he's the guy you hire.
He's the under the radar guy.
Yeah, like ironically, he's also in World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Exactly. Yeah. There's an actor. Let me get his name right. He not at all visually, but just in the way he. Okay, his name is Richard Schiff. He shows up in every fucking movie ever.
Richard Schiff
and he's
amazing.
Always good. Now your listeners can't see, but for you guys, it's
it's Toby from The West Wing. For those of you,
he's in Lost World 7.
Lost World.
Yeah, he's your whatever you want him to be.
He's in all.
He's in Man of Steel.
Movies.
He's Emil Hamilton in Man of Steel.
And every time he shows up, it's like, oh, that guy, he's great. But then he just leaves. He's the perfect under the radar, like incredibly talented actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's like Josh Brolin.
But now Brolin's huge again. Like it's weird when those guys are like too handsome. Because most of the it's that guy, right? They're just like they look like normal people. So it's that Spielberg thing where you hire people that look like real people to be by your beautifuls.
Guy.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, this guy's way too good looking to just be like the sad guy that humps neighbor ladies. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like he's eating in on the genre of like the character actor.
I watched that Norman Reedus motorcycle show where he just basically is paid to go on vacation, and he takes Josh Brolin in an episode to New Zealand. And so you got Norman Reedus, who's like not in a lot, but everyone loves him from Walking Dead, and Josh Brolin, who's arguably fucking awesome and in everything. And they're like walking around, and people keep coming up and taking pictures with Norman Reedus, but they like ask Josh Brolin to take the pictures. Nobody, like
Thanos,
nobody
get over here, you purple fuck.
Yeah.
You know what he should have done? I mean, the guy asked him to take a photo. I don't even know who you are.
Or he intentionally does it wrong, and he's like, "You should have aimed for the head."
Yeah.
Bad picture. Yeah, there you go. But no, I don't know if this movie works though with a big star. You know what I mean?
Right.
No,
because I think there's something about this movie that I found fascinating, which is I love movies that intentionally build in narrative armor, where they can kind of fuck up as much as they want and be like, it's part of the game, right? Because when Stephen Roots, he explains the children's game, and he's like, if a child says his name enough, eventually it becomes gibberish. And then he does like this metaphysical shit, and he's like, what's more real, the name or the gibberish? And I was like, oh my God, he just backdoored every plot hole this movie could ever have. But they do this really cool thing that throughout, and I didn't notice it as much in the prologue, because it takes a while to reset from that. Because I thought that, I was like, man, that on its own is one of the best horror movies I've seen in years. But they do this weird repetition thing with him. Like whenever anyone asks him to write on a paper, right? And he starts tapping the pencil, or the repetition with the pills.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's one of those things. I was like, I feel like they're doing some weird mind control stuff so early in the movie that you just feel wildly uncomfortable the whole time. But I thought that was a brilliant escape hatch they built in.
Quickly, for like any of your listeners who have not seen this movie, one, you should watch the fucking movie. But like this movie.
Also, if you're listening to this pod without watching the movie, like, watch the movie first. Like, we're gonna spoil it, so watch the movie.
And it's something I didn't really notice. And like Chris, I watched your video, and I even watched it again before coming to do this, because there was something that you noticed that I didn't, where it was like there's a lot of like visual motifs, like in the beginning in the Wuhan, where like the creature had his like fingers interlocked, and then later on James has his finger interlocked. Like it's something I didn't catch on to. And then I rewatched it, and it's like every fucking 5 minutes there is some callback to like before, and it just is the whole thing. Like, and I don't know. I just think this is like what on paper would be like the perfect studio. It reminds me of The Ring.
Yeah, sure. No, there's definitely, I mean, Ring is a good comp for like the days, you know, the creepy phone calls, and it's like a very heavy phone ringing sound whenever their phone rings. You know, it's like that heavy, sounds metallic when the phone rings. Yeah, no, The Ring is a good comp. Cure for Wellness, like just films that are hard. And Cure for Wellness was also a 20th Century Fox movie. Apparently, there were some people who worked at Fox that actually gave a shit about weird movies like this and financing them. You know, which is great. This just doesn't happen. The first time director getting this kind of money to make a film so outside of the norm for what an audience would normally see. See, it's funny how Josh, you mentioned your experience of discovering it and that it was 2.5 hours long, and I saw that, and I actually somehow in my head I filed it as 20th Century Fox sold, and then they stopped working on it. Like in my head, I just thought they stopped editing it. I just thought that. And I had no idea.
Well, that's not untrue.
That's a fascinating way to think of this movie.
There's an
interesting theory right there.
There's a great podcast interview with a place called Secret Handshake, where he talked about how that was his cut. Like he had cut the movie. That's how he liked it. And I just thought, oh, well, they just ran out of money and they just stopped cutting it and they just put it out in theaters. I don't know if someone wrote that on Twitter or somewhere. Okay, so that did happen. Quickly,
yeah. He did another interview. I want to say it's maybe Film School Rejects, where like he basically said that because they made the movie in Cape Town in South Africa, that like to get that tax credit and to get that money. Yeah, they had like, you know, he was editing it and he sort of was like, it's going to be a 2-hour movie. But like they basically at the end of the kind of editing cycle, their producers called and were like, fuck, we need to finish this in the next like week to get to, you know, to basically not lose all this money for the South African Film Commission. So he's like, there's probably about 5 or 6 minutes in there that he would have cut before, but this is really like, which there is stuff where like normally you know, someone's like, we got to go. You cut from there. You don't show them like walking out of the house.
Cut the conversation ending. You cut the conversation.
Yeah. And you could tell in this where they're like, we got to get out of here. And then they like walk to the door. It's like stuff like, it's like stuff like that where I'm like, okay, you know,
that was the one, but they like the weirdness of that kind of works for this movie. Like I like the one where she goes in for the kiss and it's like boundaries. And this is before we know all the way what happened. And it feels like it takes her 2 minutes to like hang her head and walk in shame out the front door. And you're just like, damn, he is going in on this neighbor lady. Like she just got shut down. Her daughter's in like a murder cult. And he's like, you walk slow to the front door.
Like walks outside of his house. And he's like, why is Will Byers from Stranger Things in my backyard?
Exactly. Well, dude, okay. Yeah, that was something. I love watching these movies with my wife because she just gets really hooked on like the weirdest shit. So her 2 things was that haircut, and she's like, "You can't trust someone with that haircut. That's not a haircut."
Hot though. It's kind of hot. Like it's not like that. It is.
Like, no, Lobo. This is what me and my wife settled on. It's the kind of thing when someone's too attractive, right? They're like, "I know how hot I am," and they intentionally try to kneecap themselves so they can like still be hotter than you and feel like they've done something non-genetic.
Yeah.
But that, and then my wife made us pause the movie, and we were Googling whatever the fuck that antidepressant was in the pill bottle for like 15 minutes because she's like, I know this is the whole movie. I'm like, I don't think so. There was a skeleton man in a cave. I don't think the pharmacy's gonna crack it. But it is funny to see in these movies what she gets stuck on, and especially a movie like this where they have so many absurd just cutaways, like really close-ups on things, which usually, you know, I was like, oh, this is like a Chekhov's, you know, antidepressant prescription. What's the secret? I thought that was going to be like how he was getting tricked or whatever with the blue pill, but it's not. It just fucking hangs there. And you're like, why are they doing this to me with every other fucking shot? But then by the end of the movie, again, it gets back to that game of, I think they're constantly just fucking nagging us the whole movie. And it really works to hammer that ending home.
You can't just take an actress and put her in that haircut and put her in that white and you can't put her in that white baby doll dress with latex gloves and tell me that that's not you. That's like
I am learning so much about
wow,
you.
There's a lot of reveals on this one. Holy
I am just like
shit.
This lady is, wearing a cute dress and has gloves with a 80s Stranger Things haircut, and she's like cutting this paraplegic guy's beard, and I'm just like, I am really turned on. I have no idea why.
If you ever give up porn, you should get auditioned for sure. That'd be right up your alley. But no, I just say but immediately I knew, I was like, that lady is untrustworthy. As soon as I saw that hair, and they did I love the opening shots where like you first see the character. I love when movies do that really well. And the first time we see her is in the literal cesspool of this, alcoholic chain smoking cop's backyard, is we see her reflected in the cesspool. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And then I saw the hair and I was like, I fucking knew it.
It's always the haircut. Always the haircut. Bowl cuts are the most revealing, or just one of the most revealing motifs in horror movies. It's just like, if that's a bad haircut, that person is fucked up.
I agree.
Without question.
I agree.
But see, for me, it was I got that feeling when she starts spouting metaphysical shit and telling him that he doesn't exist and nothing exists.
Oh, anytime
it's like, oh yeah.
Anytime anybody gets culty in a movie, I'm like, oh god.
Well, and that was something. That was something that like it took me. I'll be honest, like it took me till pretty much when Stephen Root shows up, like when they start dealing with like the what is it, Pontifex or something like that?
Pontifex Institute.
When they started dealing with that, that is like honestly when I like kind of perked up, because I texted Griffey in the middle of me watching this. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. Like this seems like it's gonna go nowhere, honestly. And
it goes everywhere.
That shit popped up, and I'm like, all right, now I'm in. Because that's the kind of thing, like whenever like cults are always gonna grab me, and like even in my notes, I'm like bowl cuts, cults, and all kinds of weird shit like that.
It's all
always gonna pull me back in. So honestly, like from that moment on, I'm like, all right, let's do this. Like I am fully invested. Like Bhutan was amazing, but now I'm like in this shit.
That's probably what Pryor said to 20th Century Fox to get it funded. He's like, there's going to be bowl cuts and cults, man.
Bowl cuts and cults. What else do you need?
It's like, everyone, be prepared to get rock hard.
Is there more of a pitch you need, or are you rock hard now?
It felt like
we have bowl cuts, we have cults, and we have B-grade stars. Let's do it.
Sprinkle in some Stephen Root for the diehards.
Oh, dude, yeah. Oh, Stephen Root is an old
they wanted to cut that
great.
scene. They wanted to cut that.
That's the one they wanted to cut. That's like my favorite scene of the movie.
I
liked him, and I liked the old police captain who does his "You can't indict the cosmos, goddammit." And I was like, God, that's such a badass cop moment.
You want to know? Really quick, Josh, you had something you wanted to say, but I have like in regards to that policeman, I have a whole deep dive that went on. But okay, so I'm looking at this police officer. I'm like, I know this man. I know him from something. So I realized he is the cop in Home Alone 2. Yep. That Catherine O'Hara is like, if your children were lost in New York, what would you be doing? He's like, I'd probably be doing the same thing you're doing. That guy is literally the cop in Home Alone 2. And now, so I'm like, how did this connection happen? Was it just an audition? Did he just? I look through.
Did David Pryor direct Home Alone 2?
No.
Why not?
I think it was the DP. Was like B camera on Home Alone 2. I'm not.
Wow.
Yes.
I swear to God. I swear to fucking God.
Awesome.
And I'm like, so the DP was like, I know a guy. He plays a great cop. And they got him for Empty Man. I guarantee that's what happened.
Scoop, you got not a cop in anything? I swear to God, he's a cop in everything.
Maybe I don't know. I didn't look at any.
It's like James Badge Dale, man. He's a cop and everything.
Yeah.
Like a good cop. He's great, man. I just rewatched Standoff at Sparrow Creek and I was like, yep, here's a cop. Like
he was really good in that movie.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. All the performances are just so good.
Yeah,
it's one of those. It's the weird movie where, again, this gets back to your point, where it's just like nothing in this movie makes any sense on paper.
But no,
you know what I mean? Well, not even narratively, just like how the fuck did they just like, they didn't get anyone for like to come in for a day and play that cop. Like that seems like the biggest gimme of all time, but it works really well. I don't know.
Yeah. Marin Ireland is also amazing.
Yeah.
The she was in The Dark and the Wicked also. Like she gave two
Yeah.
really damn good performances last year.
Mhm.
She's like amazing. She's great.
I watched those like a week apart and was like, man, this lady had like a very like tough year of making movies. Like,
Someone get her some goddamn chocolates.
Yeah.
Dude, that was me after I watched The Dark and the Wicked. I was like, I'm willing to go into a diabetic coma to just have like a dessert. What a just unrelentingly brutal experience. At least the Empty Man has some like teenagers getting attacked.
The best part about the teenagers though is that like all of those kids, because this was shot a couple years ago, but like all of those kids individually have like blown up. So like there's the kid from fucking Super 8 in there, and then the one kid that's like, tell her about it. That's the he's in it, and he's like Harold in The Stand. And it's just like it's like this who's who of kind of modern teenage actors, and they just fucking in one fall swoop just kill them all.
Yeah.
Dude, that scene though was so fucking awesome.
It's like,
the scene is amazing.
That actually caught me off guard because he did the. This is something I want to get to later. The infection protocol of the Empty Man. I don't think he's following his own rules, but when he blows the whistle, right, they do that classic like clanging, and he hears the sound. In the thought that what that alpaca hipster or whatever heard in Bhutan is what he's hearing, but it's actually their dead bodies clanging against the underbridge. That fucking blew my mind. I was like, that's when I knew for sure. I was like, this movie's going to be my kind of thing. Like that was the moment I locked in all the way.
It was a great reveal.
It's just edited so well. There's no jump scare. You know, he just hops down there, looks into the lens, and then and the way they do like on a slider, they push the camera to the right. You're like, here's a body. Isn't that horrific? Actually, here's four
all
more.
Of them.
It's so great. It's so great. It's such great directing.
The crazy part too is that when you watch the trailer, and the trailer that everyone was dogging on, they're like, it's another one of these fucking teen horror movies. the teen horror stuff in the movie is awesome. It's so well done. And it's like, if the movie was just that stuff, I still think he would have kind of like nailed it. Like, I think it would have been, because that shit was, I remember just thinking in the theater, I'm like, this is like spooky. And I think it's because those kids are just, the characters are kind of self-aware. Like they're all kind of assholes, but they're like sort of aware of like themselves and like what they're doing. Like they're like dogging on each other, and you know, and yeah, it's
and I have like this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
I have this thing where like if a character experienced something and they feel dread about it, and they're telling someone else about the experience, and then we see what they're talking about, that always gets me. And so her the one girl coming to James Badge-Dale and then being like, here's what happened, and then she and before she tells her story, she looks out her passenger window, and you see for like 2 frames the Empty Man just go like really quickly, like up above the frame, and it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. And then you know you can tell that she's really scared about something. And whenever a character, you can like see that something traumatizing has happened to this person, and you just want to know what. And so when they cut to the past and you see this whole thing play out, it's really exciting. Like it's just a great to the whole like the trailer scene, you know, like that scene was made for the fucking trailer. So like, but it's so much better than that.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, like, even as you say that, like, I don't necessarily understand, and I've kind of given it a pass just because I love everything else about the movie. But like, I guess I don't really understand like the Empty Man per se, because at about 3/4 of the way through the movie, like the entity goes away, and like the title and the entity become something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so like thinking back to those early scenes, like when, quick digression, this movie is like one of 2 weird movies where I've seen where they've introduced a high school character and then just like immediately showed them nude, you know,
right?
Which I thought was weird. Like I thought
I was much more hung up on like, is this girl's bathroom? She is so rich, my God.
Oh, dude, you know what I thought that was? I thought that was her fucking 30 coins. I was like, this bitch saw the Empty Man and it's like, I'll sell him out to Boniface. I thought for sure she had cashed in. And I was like, look at her living large. And then immediately I was like, oh, wait, fuck.
It's such a weird moment, though, because like, it keeps setting up that this girl's in high school, and then just like you see her like full frontal naked, and I was like, I mean, I know the actress is 18, but it feels like I'm like, ugh. Did you see Come True?
I did. I actually just watched that.
It does the same thing where it's like,
yeah,
the guy's like, she's like, I'm 18, and then like the next scene they're fucking. It's just
I know.
like...
I thought it was weird too. I actually thought that was weird as fuck. They said really quick, come true little aside to our podcast.
Yeah.
Like this dude is set up as a major stalker with a beard, looking like a Daniel Radcliffe looking guy. And
he's like 30.
Yeah, and he's just like stalking this 18-year-old girl, watching her dreams, and then all of a sudden, like she finds out that they're stalking, and then they have sex, and it's weird. I don't understand.
Does she have a bowl cut?
I mean, kind of.
She's got a bowl.
Moments before though, he's like, oh, aren't you? I don't know. This isn't exactly, but the guy's like, oh, you know, it's. Aren't your parents going to be worried about you? And she's just like, it's okay, I'm 18 or something. And then they're fucking. And it's like,
they were like confirming it on text, like contractual.
Yeah.
Confirmation.
But like the empty man.
Nobody wants an Allen versus Pharaoh sequel. That's all.
No.
I mean, this is a worse version of that, but yeah, I just saw The Night Porter for the first time last week.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Man,
God.
talk about the most problematic shit I've ever. Like, they really were like checking the box of like, what's all the things no one wants to see. No, but
Solo.
I think to your point, I bought that on Criterion on accident too.
Me too.
But neither here nor there. We definitely don't need to talk about Solo. That makes you feel like a true empty man. I think your point about the empty man is really fascinating, right? Because that's what I was saying. Like, when you compare this to The Ring, I was like, that's a really fun example because The Ring is so doggedly tied to what she is, right? You get the call, you have 7 days, and then that's kind of the reveal at the end, right? Oh, you thought you got out? No, you fucking didn't. Day 7, hammer. This one is so much looser than that, right? Mm-hmm. And with it, because it kind of plays in 2 lanes, right? Which is the first time we see the empty man, right, as this cloaked figure. They immediately cut to the 2 friends pounding on the door. And so you're like, oh, so now the empty man's this kind of theater of the mind, whatever you want to see, right? He whispered into her ear and now she's seeing this cloaked figure, but it's really just her imagination. And when I think her name's Deidre, right? The Judas who sold him out and killed her own dog and stabs herself in the face, right?
She didn't kill her own dog. It was the girl that goes, she's the blonde girl who's like, aren't you a child? She has one line, and she's the one that killed her own dog.
She killed her. I hate her even more now. That's something I could remove. I know Twitter wants to ban sex scenes in movies. I don't ever want to see another dead dog in a fucking horror movie for the rest of my life. But so when they did that, right, and she's like getting attacked by the empty man in the steam, I was kind of like, all right, this is getting a little bit to your point. Like, this is we need the jump scare moment. But when they do that cutaway, like medium shot, and she's choking herself, stabbing herself, I got this like ice water chill down to my core. I was like, oh my God.
I also love like the perfectly framed scissors, like in the center, like going, it's like a perfect in the center. It almost looked like a robotic arm.
It's like De Palma, just ching ching. Yeah, it's like a giallo.
Really incredible.
Yeah, and then that gets into this because then they find her and it's like someone wrote the empty man message. And it's like, so is this theater of the mind where people are just going psychotic, right? And the empty man's kind of unlocking the Pandora's box in us, right? And we can't handle it and hurt ourselves. Or is he like, because then when they cut to Pontifex Institute, you're like, so there's a lot of motherfuckers who've been blowing on whistles that are too important because they're part of the vertical marketing scheme that like they can't get empty man, right? So they got to have more than 3 days. So I was like, this empty man really understands how to like brand himself in the alternate.
But then you get the cop from Home Alone 2, who's like,
like that's how we'll refer to him now. The derelict cop from Home Alone.
he has like a moment where he's talking to James Badge Dale and he's like, 2 weeks ago, this woman fed her newborn baby to a stray pack of dogs, and then like wrote the empty man. And it's like, so this is not just which is weird because ultimately the story completely revolves around James Badge Dale. But then like, if you take what that guy was saying, there's like another aside. So this thing is operating on like tons of people. So it's like, it's just a very expansive movie. Like, and it just keeps getting fucking bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, the best that I can kind of come up with is that it seems as if every once in a while, or at least what they're doing right now, obviously, is they're trying to do make this tulpa, like a flesh and blood thing that it's like a transmitter or a receiver for whatever their crazy ideas are, and that in some way this is if the Empty Man is an actual entity, that it's almost like he is positioning the chess pieces on the board to get to the place where that happens, and if he has to have this happen to make this happen, it's almost like fate is intertwined in a way as well. But the best part is that it's like I could be completely talking out of my ass right now, and that's like not what he's going for at all. And there's like I kind of like that ambiguity. Like I kind of am totally fine with the fact that Josh might look at it differently, that you might look at it differently, you know, that it just it doesn't need to always, at least for me, in the case when a movie is this well made with this many ideas, I'm kind of okay with, like, you know, like at the ending of The Thing, for instance, I don't really need to know if either of them are the Thing. I'm kind of okay with them just sitting there drinking and then it just ends. Like I never care to know, because the rest of it was so fucking cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I imagine this movie is so strange because it feels like every 10 minutes the movie changes and it like sort of like switches genres and becomes something else.
So true.
Which like on a script level, I just imagine like reading coverage for a script and being like, oh, this is a fucking disaster, because it just like keeps switching. And yet he's so, and as a first time director, it's just like, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because it feels very like it feels like a Korean film, in that, you know, it definitely is sort of snaking through genres, but it feels very tonally of itself. The only thing that I didn't love was like, which honestly, like in theaters, I was like, oh, that's a reshoot to make it scarier, is his James's stuff at his house, where like he like wakes up in the middle of the night and like the Empty Man runs at him and he's like, ugh, and like goes to hit it with a bat. It happens like 3 times.
Ghost! I don't know. I don't know. How would you react? I don't know.
I don't know. I wouldn't just lay there. Take me now.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm good. Just
Alex, what's your go-to underwear fighting a ghost move?
Oh man, For a long time, it was actually Griffey and I have a buddy who used to give samurai swords for wedding gifts, and for a long time, I had a Hattori Hanzo hidden under my bed.
Yeah.
Specifically, if someone broke into my house, I'd be like, no one wants to see like a fat guy running around with a samurai sword.
Dude, I have my replica Kill Bill from Spencer's Gifts right here above.
Now it's a lightsaber, and I'm like, that's even worse. So like, no one who broke into the house is be like, oh god, we got to get out of this guy's
The
insane.
Empty Man's just like, this guy's so broken, I'm out.
That stuff. It's interesting you say that it seems like a reshoot, because that stuff to me is almost like, that to me is the most generic horror I think I saw in this entire movie. And I agree, like it does sort of throw you off, but to me, the thing that I loved the most about it in general was the fact that the first time director, he wrote it too, right? I think he wrote it as well.
Yeah.
Like to me, when you write something like this and direct it, like, because yes, it does shift genre a lot. Like there is a lot of changes here and there. The level of control required to know where you're at in your story, and especially once you're in the editing room and cutting this thing together, is unparalleled madness. Like I could not do that, especially like the ending you get to. And once we start getting into metaphysics and stuff like that, because I personally loved the transition out of what I would consider like a traditional like boogeyman type stuff. Because I agree, I like that. I personally like this omniscient concept of the empty. Like the fact that it's not a guy or a person is really wonderful to me. I don't think, and I've always had I think that's probably why I don't like a lot of like man movies, because to me, like, other than Candyman, which is amazing, but like, it's like, the problem is I don't understand, like, if it's one guy, you're telling me like 50,000 people are doing the same shit at the same time. Like, I like that he sort of rewrote it halfway through, saying like, this is more of a metaphysical property the Empty Man has, and the like birth of the flesh is like super Cronenberg-y to me, by the way. Like I got like fucking Scanners and The Brood vibes from this. Hardcore. It was that's the kind of stuff that I'm just like, this is very cool. This is the shit that's up my alley.
I've been told through the grapevine that he and so this might, I could be completely off base, but this could also be totally on the money. I've been told through the grapevine that he was originally supposed to direct The Bye Bye Man, and
bullet
but
dodged.
Just here's the thing. No, here's the thing. I think the producers of The Bye Bye Man, they had sort of like a very, we're gonna make this spooky man movie. And if you The Empty Man is based on a series of graphic novels, but they have nothing to do with each other. And so if I start to think about that, it leads me to believe that he had an idea for something, and he had all these pieces and ideas he wanted to, and was sort of just looking for like a studio script to come in and graft them to.
That makes
and
a
the
lot of
Bye
sense.
Bye Man, the Bye Bye Man was like, okay, well, I could do this, and they were like, no, we want the Boogeyman movie. And I think Boom Studios, from that podcast that Chris was talking about, from what it sounded like, is Boom Studios were kind of like, you want to make this movie, and he was like, no, I like the title, I want to make my movie. Do you want to do that? And they were kind of like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And so, for all that this is based on, because I read after I saw it, I read the first issue of The Empty Man, and it's like, people with shotguns in like a post-apocalyptic virus world, and I was like, this is not even, they're not even similar. It's
very different.
It's an original movie just with an IP name to get it made.
It's weird too that it became that, because I read the first issue after I watched the movie. I read the first issue. I'm like, well, this is not it at all. And actually, like, because Cullen Bunn is just an amazing horror comic writer, but it's also like the worst kept secret in comics that Boom Studios is supposed to be basically just an IP farm. So it's interesting to me that this is the movie that The Empty Man is, because it is an original movie. Like, it has literally nothing to do with the comic book.
No.
And it's crazy to me that Boom Studios, like, because I mean, and again, I don't remember seeing a lot of like based on the Boom Studios comic, but like it's completely
you just don't
different.
watch movies, huh?
And it's weird. It's weird to me that Boom Studios would be okay with it, given that they are so like, they literally just almost repeatedly make comics to be turned into other stuff. Like, they bought, I think, the Power Rangers stuff specifically to just reignite the franchise. And like, that's something that Boom Studios is kind of known in comics for doing. So it's crazy to me that, and I love it too. This guy kind of got away with murder almost, in that he literally just wrote his own movie and slapped a different name on it. You could name this movie anything, and I would not have known it was a comic book.
That's the difference, though, right? It's like something like The Empty Man. Like, I don't think he could have made a movie as good out of The Bye Bye Man, right? Because The Bye Bye Man at its very core, trying to be as generous as I can, is just a small idea, right? It's don't say this one thing or else, hillbilly ghost bye-byes you, right? That's all it is. The moment I saw, right? So the monks drive past the hikers, and they're kind of giving them the side eye, and you're like, whatever, white hikers, like maybe that's just how it is. And he's called onto this bridge, and he falls down this hole. And without knowing why, next thing we know, he's sitting cross-legged. And the moment I saw that skeletal kind of Indian deity, right, with all the arms, just the image of that skeleton, right, and what it says about what this fucking thing might be. So I was like, so is this an actual physical entity that came through and just got caught halfway, and that's why it's congealed into the wall? Did this thing just be like, I don't have to move? Is this an enlarged, grotesque, like, collection of humans? And that's the difference between this movie and The Bye Bye Man. Just seeing that fucking skeleton, I had like 50 ideas of what that could be, and that's way fucking scarier than don't say this word.
Yeah, exactly. It's igniting your imagination. It's making you, the scariest stuff is always going to be what you make up. It's not necessarily what you see. It's what you don't see. It's what you fill in the gap. Like, I mean, the cliche go-to is Jaws. People always talk about Jaws. When Chrissy's being eaten alive in the beginning, you don't see her bones breaking, but you imagine that, and it just, you fill in the gaps with your head. Most of my favorite horror movies are movies that don't have anything overtly in your face scary. And I recently rewatched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre last year, and I had forgotten kind of about it, and I was just thinking like, oh, it's just this really gory movie. It's almost not. It's almost PG-13. It's just that it's so grotesque that it got that R. But like, you don't really see too much Texas Chainsaw Massacring in that movie.
A lot of Texas Chainsaw running, right?
Yeah, a lot of running.
But
Texas
really
Chainsaw
effective.
Marathon, more like.
It's really effective though, because like
Right.
during that dinner scene,
Oh,
I'm just
God.
thinking to
Oh, my
myself,
God.
these motherfuckers are just eating people all the time. And
Well, you're like,
It's-
this is Tuesday for them.
yes,
Like, Jesus Christ.
yes. So like with the Empty Man, like you said, when you see this like H.R. Geiger looking thing in the beginning, you know, and even when they pan or tilt up the skeleton, the water's going backwards, and he said that was sort of an alien callback. But you know, like all that stuff, it just kind of activates your brain. And we were talking a little bit about like visual symbolism and things that were callbacks. Characters spin things in the movie a lot for some reason.
Yeah.
Like they walk by those 3 spinny things. I don't know what they are. He spins it.
It's like a prayer wheel.
When Badge Dale finds the dead dog, he sees the umbrella, he spins it. There's no reason. It's just constant. Like why are they doing this? It's like it's almost like it makes you feel like you're in a dream or something. Like you're watching this very psychedelic
totally.
dream or something. It's
Well,
really,
it gets
really
into
cool.
this thing they do at the end, right? Where because if I have a huge problem with the movie, I think it's at the ending. I don't fucking understand. Is he like a Topa golem, like he just appeared, or did he have a life and then was coerced?
Sure.
No, they do that hyper realistic retelling, right, of him humping the neighbor lady. The kid swallows the quarter. The mom sees the deer and goes off. I'm like, that is like, if that teenager wrote that in her journal, that is like a beautifully thought out backstory.
So none of that exists. Essentially, what they using as a tulpa, they used the people of the Pontifex Institute conjured a person with no anything, like an empty vessel, to carry the Empty Man, but they filled him with essentially like, because the Empty Man takes 3 days to manifest,
right?
So they basically had to like kind of like get him there over the course of 3 days. But
that was like, he starts off and he's in a store that's clearly existed for a while. You're like, all right, maybe they could do that, but the cops are like, oh, we heard about you. And I was like, so is that big ginger cop a plant? And again, this is what's beautiful about the movie, is they're like, the whole thing, to your point, Chris, is it's so fucking disorienting. Because when he's spinning things and he's tapping, right, because he can't fill out his backstory and his opinions, he doesn't have his own thought. You're like, they kind of built in a defense against this, but the hyper realistic backstory, I was like, that's so gut wrenching and probably the most a relatable thing, right? Like if my mom watched it, that's the scene that would stick out to her, is like, he was fucking the neighbor and his kid was choking and they died and it's his fault. Like that's what my mom would take away from this movie, right? Not the metaphysical,
but he deserves it.
Yeah, he's not a tulpa. He's an asshole.
Coming, that son of a bitch.
And it's like, and so that to exist, but that's like one of those weird. I was like, I almost think it's cooler if they hijack a guy that existed, right? And again, it's not like that dissuades me, because the brilliant thing about this movie is that, like you said, most horror movies now come out and it's like, you know exactly what you're getting every scene, right? Even the wild ones, you're like, they might show me something that's wild, but I kind of know where we're heading, right? This one, it just feels like, not like a Snyder cut per se, but it's just like, every idea I have, I want to fucking foist onto this screen, right? And it's almost, I remember reading about that with like Airplay. They're like, if 5% of these jokes hit, we've made the funniest movie of all time, right? And so it's like every line's a joke in that regard. And he just was like, anything I have that might be cool or might trigger a thought or pull you into the screen, right? Because that's, you hit that point in most movies now. It's like that 30 to 50 minutes where you're just like, oh God, I get it. We gotta, take this step. And this one, it's like all those weird cutaways and everything. It just, you can't, it is like a virus. Like you can't fucking pull out of the screen or the story, even though it feels too long and disjointed and unusual.
But what's so good about it too is that on the Secret Handshake podcast, he's talking about how he's like, well, I just don't think Fox knew how to market this, but a company like A24 could. I don't think that that's right at all, because really? I think this movie is considerably less pretentious than A24 fare. I think this feels like a studio movie that actually has something going for it, whereas A24 is like art house movies that are like a little bit more mainstream focused. This is like a, and I don't mean Indiana Jones, but I mean, this is like a pulp weird fiction Indiana Jones type movie. You know, there's scares. It's not so hard to track. I don't see a world in which an It Comes at Night trailer for this is gonna fucking like
the ultimate voice job.
Yeah, I like that movie, but they sure did with that.
The audiences didn't come at night. That's all I remember. Or day or weekends. Yeah.
Nobody.
They didn't come at all.
I don't know. I mean, I think to your point though, it's so weird to use this phrase for this movie, but it feels more meat and potatoes than like I just watched Saint Maud and I was like, I fucking love that movie. That's my kind of movie, but I understand why I feel like most people that watch it aren't going to be in on it. You know what I mean?
Because nothing happens, and it's just like,
how dare you? We watch a woman ripped asunder.
Another pod. That's another show. Another pod.
Yeah, another pod.
Yeah,
we're talking about the Empty Man, not the Empty Mod.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I don't know. I mean, I feel like
this feels like a studio movie, though. It doesn't. Feel
it really
like
does. It really.
like
I think the teenager stuff it does more. But that's, I mean, because this is the weird dynamic, right? So him investigating, right? They think your daughter's crazy. I'll go talk to your friends, right? And I think Chris had alluded to this earlier when, because there's the scene when she's just like, yeah, I'll get in your car if I can have a smoke. And I was like, nope, red flags. Don't do any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's when she gets in that car, you're like, that's when it becomes an A24 scene. Oh, there's a flash. And then all of a sudden the sounds start cutting out. That's something that this movie absolutely crushes is the sound usage, right? Because the sounds start cutting out one at a time.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you cut back and you're like, oh, there's no people here. There was like 500 kids, and we all remember after school that's the hangout.
I'm not sure there's anything more jarring in this movie besides not only is the phone the most jarring sound effect, but then the utter silence.
Yeah,
is also.
But think about when she's talking about
incredible.
After we've seen the bridge, right? They cut back and the kids are like all in that cross-legged position. And he's not acknowledging it, but she's seeing it. And the sound is cut off to where it feels like a movie again. And you're just like, oh God, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is the kind of shit that I can imagine the studios are like, well, how do we put that in the trailer? Even though it's a fucking terrifying scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the way the sound is used in this movie. For me, the scariest sequence in the film is the Camp Elsewhere sequence.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Goes into the cabin, he watches this horrific video that's so goddamn scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize he's been in there so long, the sun has set. And then he walks out and he sees this crazy campfire thing. But now when he starts to leave and he turns back and all these people are just staring at him, and the crickets go out of the mix. The crickets go out first, then the fucking light turns off, and it's just like, boop, nothing. I swear to God, I was watching it I showed it to, I have a roommate, I showed it to him. We were quiet. When the light turns out, he actually went, he fucking lost his mind.
The audible pucker. He's like, oh God, something
horrendous. Is so good.
Well, it's so funny.
And that's not a jump scare. It's like an audio. It's like a sound effects or something. It's sound design scare. I don't even know how to describe it. It's great. It sets you off.
But that scene has like one really weird moment, right? Because they do, again, the sound is he takes a step back and then it's like the 300, like the phalanx chunk. And they take a step and they do that twice. And you're just like, oh my God, oh my God. And instead of the rule of threes, they do this weird thing where he just goes, oh, fuck this. And he takes off running. And I was like, are we doing Abbott Costello? Because it's so fucking scary.
But it's funny. And like the movie
funny.
Has this like self-awareness that keeps it from being just like so self-serious.
There's another joke I like too. He gets the bear on his doorstep. No, he gets the bear on his doorstep and he holds up the bear and he looks around and he goes, okay. And he just like nods.
If he's got his ghost killing bat.
He's like, yeah, okay.
I really like how not accepting he is of like the horror that surrounds him. He's like, all right, fuck this whole thing. Fuck it all.
When he goes to the
files, he's looking at the files like, you guys are funny.
Yeah. I'll say this though, I screamed at my TV when he picked the fucking bear up. I was like, "Don't you bring that in your house!" Everyone knows.
Oh yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, "Come on, man."
Oh, yeah.
It's
once teddy bears walk off frame, I'm like, "Don't touch it again.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that."
So quick, I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
In those videos in Camp Elsewhere, when there's the kind of like, what's a nice way of putting this? The sort of a mentally handicapped thing is sort of drawing on the walls. Is that him?
I thought
I
that too.
wondered that on the second viewing too.
Yeah.
Because I wondered, because that one said Manifestation 4, I think. And when he sees later all the stuff, like the pictures of his wife and kid and the teddy bear, that said Manifestation 16.
Well, I think that's the question, though. Are they all him? Because he is
They're all
technically the
tulpas.
final manifestation. So they're all him, technically.
But then, like, when the poor creature in the video is bleeding, when what he draws on the cabin wall is definitely the Sherpa hipster empty man once he gets his head blown off.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I mean, that's the other thing. This movie just casually digs into time travel. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? It really does have every idea they could fit in there.
The bowl cut girl was there all along.
And Josh rejoiced.
That actually is the same character from Home Alone 2. It's the same cop.
Yes, that's why he got a promotion.
He had to get
I saw
Missouri.
a lady kill 2 men with pigeons, and I couldn't indict her.
That's what would have happened if he had said, like, last week a lady fed her newborn to a pack of stray dogs, and then he was like, and when I was younger, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern ran amok in New York. Like, that would have been the greatest thing.
That would have been that's the fucking cat.
How did this kid get all this industrial grade chemicals? It was horrifying. I couldn't walk.
If that had happened in this movie, I'd been like, who gives a fuck about the empty man? Can we please follow this cop around for the rest of the movie?
Yeah,
right. The empty man's bad, but the sticky bandits were a real scourge.
I got to figure out how this story goes.
He just like arrests someone for like a DUI and is like doing the paperwork. He's like, can't indict the cosmos. Like, it's just like
it's the best line. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. I think they're fucking plants though, because they said they knew who he was. And the thought that the cops are investigating fucking 6, 7 dead teenagers and they don't run his name.
There's a line with the teenage girl, the where she says at the end, she's like, are you starting to wonder what's real and what isn't? And it's sort of like, opens the door for interpretation as to which scenes happened in reality and which scenes happened in his mind. And there's also like, there's part of me that's like, I like him being a real person too much to deny that maybe at some point some of this shit happened. Like, part of me wants some of it to happen. So, because like if he's talking with his neighbor, the woman that he slept with all those years ago, and she's having concerns and she seems to be there, but then when he calls her on the phone, she's like, I have no fucking idea who you are. Mm-hmm. That's the one part of the movie that doesn't 100% like flow for me, but I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm okay.
It's like, where's he been all these days, you know? Like,
and also I was like, what a cruel thing for the daughter to do. Like, hey mom, I was writing fanfic about you being a horrible piece of shit. That mom definitely fucked some neighbor. We don't know which for sure. But I mean, that's the thing though, to Chris's point. Yeah, when they show the flashback, it's so fucking gut-wrenching. And when she said, she says something like, we tried to make tulpas and it didn't work. What we realized is that they needed the grief and the sadness and the fear. And I was like, but if this guy didn't have that and you just wrote it 3 days ago, that's not as powerful as this guy just, because what I really like is, again, the kind of running parallel theory of the empty man is that he's something inside of us, right? And that he's not really a ghostly spirit attacking us. We're doing it at his behest, right? So the idea that at the end, when she's like, aren't you fucking sick of it? Isn't this your fantasy, is to just be done? Like, your suffering's done, man. You've fucking had this shitty life for years, carrying all this guilt and going to your birthday alone. It's pathetic, right? For him to say, you know what? Yeah, fuck yeah, dude, I'm out. I want the empty man. Because that's what's fucking scary about cults and religion, is that you're like, I absolutely do understand why people, and I didn't when I was younger. I'm like, that's stupid. Then you're like older and you have kids and a job and bills, and you're like, yeah, dude, I could go live in a commune. Like, I get it. Right. And that, taking that out of his journey, I felt was a little bit weak, but everything that was happening was so operatic at that point. Yeah. You didn't need it all.
You two have lived, Alex, Josh, you guys have lived in LA at some point, yeah?
Mhm.
Oh, I mean, Alex, you live there now.
I still live here, but yes.
Yeah, so when I lived there, I lived pretty close to the Scientology church, and I would just walk by all the time. And they were always loons, and I just, walk by. But I took my brother and my girlfriend when they're from Wyoming, and I took them there once, and I just thought it was funny, and I just took them there and brought them in for a free trial of the first processing.
The fucking e-test or whatever. You gotta be nicer to your girlfriend's brothers, dude.
Oh, wow.
And no, like we
and they joined and they loved it, and 10 years later they're happy Scientologists, and it's all
that
your
guy
fault.
rubs Tom Cruise's running sore feet.
I'm never gonna have a successful career in Hollywood if I keep dogging on Scientologists. But no, so I took them there, and because they thought it was funny, and we went through, and they took us inside, and all these fucking smiling people are just like making us watch all these videos about like removing our pain and shit. And my brother, who's adopted, this woman comes up to him, and I thought he was gonna punch her, because she comes up and she's like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And
Damn,
and
hit
he's
me with
just
the
like,
free coffee first.
he's like, no, I would not tell you that. And she's like, it's okay, it's like a safe spot. And we like got out of there because it was really kind of strange. But like when you're watching, if you've ever been near any of that, or even just walking on Hollywood Boulevard, the second he goes to the Pontifex Institute and there's all these people smiling, it's just like, exactly what that is, and you're like, get out of there, man. Like, you fucking,
that was my
I don't know if you guys saw, like, but in January I talked about on my channel, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and
I actually that video came up after I watched your Empty Man video, and I watched that one as well.
That YouTube algorithm is
that was really.
Hey, you like cult movies? Here's a cult story.
You like Chris and
Check this out.
A video.
No, like, seriously, like, yeah, I was raised in that, and I got out in my early 20s. I'm 32 now. It's been 10 years, but my family, though, they're still there, man.
Yeah.
And so when you say like people, they can get like enraptured by that shit, I fucking know, like, it is true. And so like when I'm watching this any movies where there's cult stuff, I'm like, yeah, I buy it. Like, I buy it, because people fall into it. They're looking for answers. Somebody says some fancy glossy sentence that's just perfect, and then that feels like that sentence took the pain away, so I want more of that.
Absolutely.
And that's all. And that's why like this movie, like when they went into the Institute, everything, even the way his voice echoed off the walls with like that audio, the microphone, I was like, oh God, like that's it. That's what it's like.
I'm being transported.
When he goes to the basement, and there's that audio recording, it's like, nothing is real, nothing can be real. And he's just walking, there's like people staring at the black poster. I was watching with my girlfriend, and she just was like, because that's the moment where the movie really starts to switch. And she just goes, what is this movie? And I was like, that is exactly it, where like you are an hour and a half into this movie and you're like, what am I watching? It just keeps
we're starting a new movie.
It does, but all the stuff from previous gives context to what happens, so it's constantly morphing and just becoming something new. This is like the best creepypasta movie made. Like,
I mean, it might be the only good creepypasta.
No, Channel Zero. Channel Zero is.
Oh, I do
incredible.
like Channel Zero. Yeah, that was a cool show.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, those are cool.
Dude,
but
Chris. Oh, they're so
I'll put it on my
fucking
list,
good.
like, literally right now. I'll put it on my list.
Yeah. You'll like. I like. Yeah. What's the last one I watched? The Rutger Hauer one, where it was like Texas Chainsaw Stairway to Heaven with Rutger Hauer. I was like, yeah, I'm in on this.
Chris, it's like 4 seasons. Each season is a different creepypasta. They're completely unrelated, made by different directors, and it fucking rules. If you like Empty Man, you will like that.
I think what's so cool about Empty Man is like it really did feel like, and this probably goes to your point, Lobo, about him maybe being involved with the Bye Bye Man at some point, but he it just feels like he was looking at the industry and was like, what idea is selling right now? Okay, one of these sort of creepypasta ideas. I don't want to make one of those, but I want to make like a weird metaphysical movie about like thoughts and tentacles and like just like crazy cosmic stuff, and I want to just have all that in there, but I know I can sell it if I make it seem like it's a creepypasta movie, because honestly, like, I can't even imagine going to a smaller indie studio with this and being like, finance this.
Yeah.
They'd probably be like, that's long and weird and that's never going to make us any money. The fact that he somehow got Fox to do it is insane to me. Like, it just blows my mind. I know he had connections, obviously, working behind the scenes with Fincher's movies, with like on the DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. But like, still, it's just amazing that this happened this way.
It feels like I really like their stuff. Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson.
Yeah.
This feels like something that they would make if they were given like $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels of that ilk, which, like, you know, when you watch The Endless, which is, you know, $500,000 something movie, and you're like, wow, the ideas are really like strong and kind of trippy, but it's grounded in characters. That's what this is, but this is like the more nihilistic version of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what else I like about it? I don't know what the budget for it is, but
Yeah.
it feels like that weird mid-budget horror you don't get anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it feels
exactly
like that
what
weird
it feels like.
20-30 million, whatever it is, movie that you just never see
Yeah.
anymore. And this is why you don't see it, because like the studio is like, what is this? It tested poorly, cut 40 minutes out. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like, that's
It's just a weird. It's a weirdly. Like the budget range is so, and I don't know what it is either, but you're right. And when you see movies like that, like, they either hit or they don't, and they become Walmart bin movies, which are exactly what this is. This is one of those finds where you're like, oh my god, this is awesome. How did anyone like lose this in the mix?
Actually, as of right now, this cannot be a Walmart bin movie because
It can't.
DVD.
They literally didn't even find
It's literally.
You have to find a
Walmart
hospital where
streaming
some
movie.
coma guy's just sending
The
you
empty
out
man
this
is
file.
evergreen without the
Yeah.
Walmart bin.
I mean, it's
there's-
absurd though, because we live in a world with Shudder, right, where they put out a new movie every week, and they all look the same, right? They all look like they were shot on your iPhone. They all have like the exact same kind of aesthetic. And to just go back to this remind that early 2000, like Wes Craven would get to make movies like this, where you're like, God, that looks fucking awesome. And it's big, like New Nightmare, right? It's Freddy Krueger, but that one plays very outside of the series. And you're like, it's just this big like romp around a big town. There's a ton of cast and act. They just don't fuck. Like, maybe Saw was the last one that got away with that, and Hostel, and then they're like, franchise.
Even a movie like Red Eye, like Wes Craven's Red Eye.
I was
from, like,
just gonna say
2005,
Red Eye vibes
is like kind of expensive looking, and it's mostly on a plane. So I don't know. Studios were just, I think somebody just made it might have been Saw, where they were like, wait a second, you did that for like under $1 million? Fuck. And then they were like, well, I guess we don't have to spend all this money on it.
We're out of Asian horror films. What are we gonna do? And then Paranormal Activity just wrecked the industry. Even though I love all the Paranormal Activity movies, until they said, hey, what if we could see it the whole time? But neither here nor, but I think that movie, they're like, that was literally a nothing movie. And then they dumped like $1 million in afterwards on marketing and a new ending. And that movie made fucking infinite amounts of money. And they're like, oh, we don't have to spend money on horror movies anymore.
Right.
And I think that's just become this sad idea that's taken root.
I will tell you though, that like, just sort of, cause I mean, like, I've had over the last year and a half, since Trapped came out, I've had meetings at various studios. And I think a lot, like, because Blumhouse does their thing really well, where they make, $3 million movies, they make $20 million. A lot of these other studios are sort of looking for bigger things, because I just think that the ideas of how to keep something in a house, or how to keep something, it's like, it's not exciting the marketplace. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you got to spend money to make money. So I get the feeling in the next like 5 years, you're going to see not return to like $60 million horror movies, but 15, 20, where like they look cinematic. Cause I just think that, people aren't necessarily just excited about, oh, there's like 2 people and they're being haunted in this morgue or something.
Well, for every, like, what is it, Dark Song or Autopsy of Jane Doe, there's literally 100 other movies that you see on Netflix every week, and you're like, I can make it like 10 minutes to come out. And it's just fucking brutal, man.
And that's because so many of them, and not to talk shit about people, but like so many of them are just made because they know that there's like an algorithm that proves they'll be profitable, and they're not actually they're not like made with passion. They're made because they know they can. And then you get a movie like Autopsy of Jane Doe, for instance, that's like, oh wow, they really gave a shit about this, and they went out to Brian Cox. Like they actually got in touch with Brian Cox's agent, and they got him in this movie. Like, okay, they actually cared about this one, you know. And you can always tell when the filmmaker cares. And again, with The Empty Man, like this does not feel like a movie he made because somebody gave him a job.
Yeah.
This feels like a movie he convinced people to let him make.
Yeah,
which is great. You know, you can always tell.
And there's no way he didn't have to fight heaven and earth to get that opening movie, that opening sequence in the film. Because I would guarantee 5,000 times someone sent the email like, we should maybe not go to Bhutan.
How many times do they have to do that? How many times were they like, can you put it in the flashback at the end, maybe? Like,
they're like, can that skeleton be in like the shop class?
How many studio notes came down like that? Like the beginning just doesn't work for me. It like doesn't make any sense. And like, yeah, it does. Just watch the whole fucking movie. Yeah. Like
what he said.
You know what's really cool? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
You're good, Chris. Yeah.
What I think is also kind of neat, I'm assuming obviously he didn't do this, but there is a really viable marketing idea in having a movie that you could actually have like a 20-minute short, make it, and then be like, actually, this is part of my movie, but can you give me more money because this is good, right? And just like show, like literally make the first 20 minutes of your movie, get some money together, and then go out to studios and being like, hey, I already finished the first 20 minutes of my movie. Can I just have more money? Because and you know, just like convince people. It's like, I don't know. Obviously he didn't.
Then all of a sudden they get the movie and they're like, wait, who are these fucking teens?
Yeah, right.
Wait, I thought this movie took place in Bhutan. I don't understand. What happened?
Yeah, I thought we were doing the thing because I had never even seen the trailer. Right. I know I'd heard Lobo talk about it, and then every time I went to Amazon, I saw the 217. I'm like, I can't waste even 3 more minutes on a trailer. I got to go watch something shorter. And I literally went in 100% blind.
Yeah.
And when the storm hit, I'm like, they're not hiking out of here. I like this is how fucking sad it was. I actually was like, Amy, get up, my wife. And I like picked her up on my shoulders. And I walked a lap around the kitchen. I was like, you'll never be able to hike out of here. This is impossible. I was like, this movie, I'm settled in for a snowy fucking adventure.
Did you ever see The Void?
Oh, I love The Void. We actually covered The Void. Yeah.
Did you know that the Sherpa guy is the main cop from The Void?
Yes, I did. I had to look it up because I was like, I know.
It was really bothering. Yeah, I had to do it too. It was really bothering me. It's like, why do I know this?
To Chris's point, that was essentially every actor in the movie. I was like, wait a second. Like, who the fuck is
you
that?
play a cop?
It's literally everybody. It's like the cop.
The cinematographer was the C camera.
Yeah.
On The Void.
But The Void's another one of those like that succeeded in the we'll stay in one place game. I don't know. I mean, I don't want that movie to disappear either, right? I think there is this like Orson Wellesian, like a great movie can come from all those fucking restraints, but then also it's like, can we have both? Can we have both?
Also, there are some filmmakers who just literally that's all they can get financed.
Yeah.
If like you might write a script, like I have like 6 or 7 scripts, and I one of them I wrote purposefully to be the least expensive script ever. So that if I ever got in with the right people, I could be like, hey, this is only like $100,000 maybe. And I will tell you, it has opened doors for me. Like just being able to tell people I have a feature script that could be viably shot and look right and not look cheap. Like it looks right still. And it helps. So yes, absolutely. I still want those types of movies to be made so that filmmakers who normally couldn't get as fortunate as Pryor was to be there at Fox can have opportunities. But yeah, also please give me like the strangely expensive movies that take place on a farm or something. For some reason it's $50 million budget, you know. I need that too. Like that's great.
Right.
I'm going to make a quick digression. I'm going to go back to what Chris was just saying. As we're talking about this, my cinematographer and my great friend, Bryce Holden, is watching this right now. He started it about 10 minutes before we started. And he's been texting me. And at one point he's like, he's like, I don't think that. He's like, I'm an hour in. He's like, I don't really get it. And he's like, unless the last 50 blows me away, I don't get it. And I just texted back. I was like, just text me in 50 minutes. Like, just because you have no idea. Like, the last 50 minutes of the movie is just, nothing you can do can forecast what is you're gonna watch. It's just completely different.
Yeah, because the hour is that strange point where you're like, now I just saw that lady stab her face off that kid in the shower. You're like, that's gonna be hard to follow. And they're like, procedural. And you're like, oh God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's right when it's like,
I texted Griffey, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. Like, right after when they started, like, boy, we don't know who killed her, but it appears to be a suicide. I'm like, God damn it, are we really gonna fucking do this the whole fucking movie?
It's crazy how hard the start of that movie goes.
And then just the like just yanking the steering wheel in the opposite direction and doing it's
and then they do like the long goodbye for 30 minutes. All right, I guess we're doing this.
But that
just like sadness and smoking.
I've always liked detective movies, and there is a thing where there's like detective thrillers or detective horror that I have a soft spot for. Like, I wouldn't call Zodiac a horror movie. It's obviously more of a thriller, but like a large portion of that nearly 3-hour movie is like detective scenes where like Gyllenhaal is just researching shit, and it's you get obsessed with it. You get really into it. And there were scenes in Empty Man where you can absolutely tell that David Pryor has been shadowing David Fincher for a long time. There are sequences.
There's just shots that feel that
shots, way. Colors, the green,
the color
the
palette. There's like, I think it was right when he gets home, right before he goes to bed, before we have the first time the Empty Man like runs up the stairs. There was a shot, and I'm like, well, there's just Fincher lighting. Like, they're just like, it's just this big swath of green over the lens, and I'm like, cool, this is great.
The best scene, though.
Lots of insert shots, too.
Yeah.
The best fucking scene in the entire movie. And it just gets me every time.
All right. What do you got?
The absolute best scene is when James Badge Dale is just following those people, and they keep cramming more people into the car. And then they get out, and they just open the trunk, and 2 people get out of the trunk. You can't tell me. It's hilarious. And like, he's just like trailing them, and they just keep putting more teenagers in the car, and they just pull up, and like, it's like a clown car. All these people get out, and they just like open the trunk, and a bunch of teenagers like pop out and go inside. And he's just like, James Badge Dale is just so like exhausted the whole time. He's just like,
well, he even says that once he captures that little Jack Nicholson lookalike, and the kid's like, you don't even know your brain's itching blood. He's like doing all his and he's just like, dude, I'm so tired of your shit. It just like beats the shit out of it. I was like, I related to that.
Francisco.
Visceral.
I loved seeing young Ned Stark.
Yeah, Ned Stark. That's who the fuck that guy was.
Actually,
you know who that
that's
kid
young Ned Stark.
The 2 times I've seen the movie, every time I see the kid who's got the gun to his head, I'm like, if they make a young Tarantino biopic, that kid, like, I don't know why that kid looks like young Tarantino to me. Even the way his mouth is, I was like, he will play Terry. He will be rubbing somebody's feet in a movie. I know.
He's also in Standoff at Sparrow Creek with James Badge Dale.
Okay, I didn't know that.
He's like
that guy licking some toes.
He's in that.
Good casting.
My wife made me. The thing I know that guy from now is that behind her eyes show on Netflix. My wife made me watch it. I was so pissed off at the end, but like, I was like, oh, it's young. Oh, it was fucking I don't want to get into it, but yeah,
that's great.
Again, it's a great movie of like people you know from other things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just sitting there on IMDb the whole time flipping through like, oh, this guy's really good. Oh, this guy's really good. This guy was in, Home Alone 2. Oh my God, all this stuff.
All right, Alex, same game. What was your favorite scene?
Okay. Oddly, and actually I texted Griffey. This was the part that I was like, actually, I almost turned it off, but I was like, when the lights come on, when he's in the basement and they're doing the thing, the lights are, hi, how you doing? I have no idea why. And honestly, I was like, oh, great, we're doing motherfucking quips in this movie. Cool. Yeah. I am definitely going to be out soon. But having seen the rest of the movie, and after the teddy bear shit and all that, I'm like, it's it's the perfect summation of like blank slate guy or someone who's like supposed to be a blank slate. Like, of course he's just the one who's going to do that.
Yeah.
Like all of his reactions to things are oddly calculated, even though they're like, I don't know, like the most haphazard, like, I don't know, just happens, you know, random guys show up at my house.
My wife laughed so loud at that, and I think she just so desperately wanted something not scary that she latched onto that and laughed like Santa Claus at a mall. Like, that's how hard she laughed at that.
Ho, ho, ho.
All right, Chris, favorite scene?
Everything at Camp Elsewhere.
Camp was amazing too.
The cabin sequence, finding the videos, watching the videos, what's going on with that motherfucking teddy bear. And then I also there's two scenes in a movie, like we already talked about, where you realize that someone has been investigating or talking about something for so long that the environment around has changed. We already talked about the truck, when they're sitting in the truck outside the school. At first, there's kids everywhere. People are dispersing the school. She tells her story. You go back to the present, and there's nobody there. You're like, how long have they been talking? And so now when he watches the cabin videos, he watches them for so long. He's sitting there. It's dark outside. When they go to the campfire and that whole sequence with the crowd, the stepping back and forth, all of it felt very Ari Aster to me. And he made this movie before Hereditary, which is awesome.
Did he really?
Yes, he did. In fact,
shit.
like on the podcast that I listened to, he was absolutely devastated when he saw Hereditary in theaters because of the ending is like people bowing down to somebody that they kind of like made into their deity. And he was like,
I think it works better here.
I do too. I do too. And I love Hereditary. Love fucking Hereditary. It's my favorite movie.
If those old nudists had bowl cuts, Josh would be like, this movie.
Can you imagine that if he was like, damn it, they have bowl cuts too? I am fucked.
They're like, Ari Aster's got a mole.
And so
check the grips.
No, they gotta wear the baby doll dress with the latex gloves.
I'm with you on the dress. I can't follow the rest. I cannot.
It's like that campfire scene feels very like kind of midsummery as well.
Yeah.
All of this happened before he had seen any of Astor's films, and so I find that
I saw that scene and I immediately was taken back to Kill List, which is another movie that kind of dabbles with a weird religious cult that I love. But that, like, them charging at, I was like, that's exactly like that final horrifying bit of Kill List.
Yeah,
I don't know. This shit always works. I mean, yeah, if I'm being honest, I think when he finds the bodies under the bridge is probably my favorite. And then it's the same thing. Like, it just cuts hard to night.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there like, oh, Jesus H. Like, you know, what's going on?
That's very Fincher, too. Because you see, like, all the cops, and then it cuts to, like, the boat that's, like, driving around the bay. And I was like, I wonder how much that boat shot cost.
Yeah, really.
Like, yeah, that people...
It had to have been at least, like, $1,000 or $2,000. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
It's enough
to have the boat and the driver and the guy. There was probably a guy.
The 10 fire trucks on the bridge.
Both driver, lifeguard, permit, like, you know.
Yeah,
Alex is back at work now.
Just back at work.
How James Badge Dale sort of like conjures the empty man, like the myth, so kind of unceremoniously, where he's just like on the bridge and they've just talked about it and he just sort of picks the bottle up and like blows in it and throws it away. Just like, it's very like, it's not like dramatized, right. You know, like he's not, there's
like
no close up
that's like dun dun dun.
Yeah,
and, like,
he just kind of does it.
You know.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh shit, he just did it. He's on a bridge, he just did it. He kind of, you know, did, which like it is, if you think about, you know, where the whole movie, you know, it's like, well, if you're on a bridge and you blow into this thing, the whole movie is basically about like parallax bridges and shit, where it's like bridges through time. So that phrasing, you know, if you're on a bridge and you blow into the bottle, it's not necessarily literal as it is like metaphorical. It's just,
See, I in that scene, the way they played it, I didn't even think that he had completed the ritual, right? Because when he hears the sound, it's the kids underneath.
Yeah.
And when he goes down and sees the kids, it feels reminiscent, like a mirror image shot of the guy in the cave at the start. So like once he saw the kids, I was like, oh, is that like his version? Because I don't think he's summoning it. The empty man's being, you know, fucking crammed in him like he's a sad duffel bag. So I was like, I don't know. I was like, this scene
Enough-
is weird. The second viewing, I think that scene is just so, it's like a master class in how you
and he
pivot
does
into the horror of a movie.
he does an amazing job at setting up the atmosphere of the location, because there's like a good 2 or 3 minutes, maybe actually literally about 3 minutes of him on that bridge before he even goes down there, just walking down it. Looks to his right, you get a tracking shot of that side. Looks to his left, get a tracking shot of that side. Now we're pulling back with him on dolly, and he's just walking. But you're hearing the crickets, you're hearing like the cicadas and all these like insects, and you're like, as soon as those sounds go away, and he's just standing there in the middle of the bridge, like just hearing nothing, it's absolutely unnerving. And if you didn't have that sound design for like a minute and a half of like establishing what that area sounds like first, that wouldn't make your heart stop. And so he does a great job with that throughout the whole movie, of just the sound design of every single location.
I think this movie is going to have a really long life, just in that, like, I know me and Chris a couple years ago bonded over like just like weird kind of like Shaggy Dog movies, things that, you know, like Chris loves, like
the Shaggy Dog with Tim Allen.
I was hoping, I was hoping it would be that or Wild Hogs, perhaps.
Yeah.
We held hands and rode our bicycles to Wild Hogs.
I saw a Shaggy Dog in theaters. I don't want to hear about that.
That's okay.
That box office.
I saw
total.
9 Lives in theaters with Kevin Spacey.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, that's indefensible.
That was like a video confessional. We just didn't see.
Yeah, I know. Really quick, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Lobo, but like really fast. At 9 Lives, a viewer was there who watches my channel, who came up to me after 9 Lives and was like, "I can't believe I'm meeting you at 9 Lives." I was like, I know, I can't believe it either, but here we are. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
I can't. You're I'm sorry. No, I watched, because me and Chris have been talking about this for like the last 2 weeks. I don't know what I'm saying. Earlier today, I watched Chris's video again, just to kind of like see sort of like the things that you were talking about, because so we talk about them elongated here. And I hate YouTube comments, but like I read one of the comments, and it said it was just a person, because your video is about it being a cult classic, and somebody had just posted, they were like, do you think something so recent can sort of be considered a cult classic? And I think that this movie really has that ability, because it was sort of, it does feel like a movie that had absolutely no marketing, no anything, that sort of the right people have found, and it's sort of like quickly being championed. And I definitely think that this movie will play like, you know, screenings later on. I think that this thing's going to have a nice life, and that Pryor will get to make something else purely by the fact that, you know,
definitely.
Like this has been on the
to go with what you're saying, like it absolutely will have a cult fall. It already fucking does, man. I mean, just the fact that, like
4 of us right here.
People, I mean, there's people talking about it all the time. It's why I watched it. I was not going to watch this movie. 100% not. I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. And people convinced me to, you know, like you, Josh, you convinced me. And so
hell yeah,
that already is the starting, like the seeds of it, you know. And it's funny because in a way, I know that to make a movie with this type of money behind it, with a big studio, and then everything that happened with the Disney Fox merger and being released in a pandemic, for David Pryor, that was probably a goddamn nightmare. But the silver lining is you are officially forever certified as that underrated movie that you should see.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, because like,
agreed. It's the best marketing ploy of all time.
Yes. You can make the Avatar movie that's like, you know, $2 billion box office, whatever. And then you become, oh, you're Avatar. Everybody knows what you are. You're overrated, you know, but like when you sneak in under the radar like that, and you get like people like us who are like defending it, or not even really defending it, just like championing it, like saying, hey, watch it, you know, like just go support this movie. It doesn't even have a DVD.
It's so fucking crazy.
It's like the Disney's like It's like Mickey Mouse like stepped in dog shit and was just like, what is this? And like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying the movie's
There
dog shit.
should have been a cave painting of like Vision down there for an Easter egg, and then it'd have Blu-rays everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie like drinks a bunch of pre-workout and then just like beats Mickey Mouse into a pulp.
But I don't know about you guys, but this one gave me a slight bit of hope, right? That if this thing takes off, I might be the only one that I'm like, the Disney buying out Fox might be awesome for guys like us down the road. Because if they put all that fucking muscle behind like a really good Predator series, fucking RoboCop, like now they just have all these massive IPs. Yeah. And it's like, if they use those and then these are like hey, if you can get something like Empty Man off the ground, you can reboot. I don't know. I saw on Twitter the other day, the guy who did Saw Spiral is like, hey, can I please make a Leprechaun movie now? And I was like, yeah. I was like, this is the kind of shit I'm here for.
Darren Bousman, he really wants to do Leprechaun. Yeah. He's always tweeting about Leprechaun.
Oh, I fucking I think that's
kind of funny. Like, you're in a position where you've made a Saw movie and you're actually campaigning to make a Leprechaun movie. It's so great.
But that's what I mean. That's pure passion. That's what you were saying. Yeah. Like, how could that movie not at least be lovable?
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, if you made the Empty Man style version of insert X amount of whatever they have now, I think this could be amazing for us. I know everyone hates on Disney and whatever. And I don't know enough about business to know what the long-term ramifications of these buyouts are. But I was like, they've got the fucking
It's a weird thing for a studio to dry up overnight and become another studio, which just means there's one less shop in town to pitch stuff to. But in regards to this movie, like, obviously it was like the tail. It's it's like the vestigial tail that got left off, the merger. But at the same time, like, I don't know how to put it properly, but like, it's the best part almost.
Yeah.
Like, this is the kind of thing that you like when this kind of stuff happens. So yeah, you do see great people get another shot to do something that maybe is a little more high profile. And because they're low key, like Chris was saying, because they're flying under the radar, they're going to get something that they actually give a shit about and make fucking great. And make
crazy.
A studio $1 billion or whatever, but make it for like I'm sure this movie was not made for a whole lot of money. Make it for roughly the same budget and make a fucking Paranormal Activity amount of money.
It's a weird game the studios have where it's like balancing, and the one thing at Disney is that they just don't take a lot of risks. Where like studios, it's sort of like you balance out like, oh yes, Spider-Man is going to make $1 billion. So like we can make this thing. And I mean, it was interesting watching a couple years ago when Paramount almost the ex head of development of Paramount or the whatever, almost drowned that company because he just sort of like the only movies for like a year and a half that Paramount released were Empty Man's, like weird things like, no, I mean, seriously, it was like,
Man, that white people are afraid of. Go.
Annihilation, Mother. There were like all these movies that were like really high profile directors getting to make their passion projects. And Paramount was like Overlord, like these crazy things that were not making any money. And they weren't like balancing it out with like Mission Impossible. So it was like so the studio was slowly sinking because they were only making these like weird anomaly films. And it's
well, I think what's interesting about Disney being as big as they are and doing what they're doing is that because they did the same thing in they did the same thing in like the mid 90s to mid 2000s, which is, it was fucking Miramax. Like Miramax was a Disney arm and put out some of the bigger independent movies, quote unquote, but like fucking making Pulp Fiction, and that's a fucking Disney movie. Yeah, that's a weird thing.
I mean, Disney just.
But that's what I think Disney needs to do.
$1 billion movies 3 times a year.
Yeah, but that's what Disney's going to end up. But that's what Disney's going to probably end up doing is making a smaller arm to make these kinds of movies, and then they don't have to like. It doesn't get associated with the brand
Club
of Disney.
Bhutan, right?
But we all know
you shove them down in this little development cave in Club Bhutan and see what they come out with. Right?
Why not?
Yeah,
you guys get the profit of Soul 5. Go.
Nice. Touchstone Pictures
there's-
was like Disney when Touchstone Pictures was
Mhm.
the thing. Yeah, and so like
Exactly.
all of Shyamalan's first movies were Disney technically. And like
Yeah.
they used to do weird shit like that, which is cool. I wish they would do more stuff like
I
that.
think that I like to think maybe because hopefully this movie has like what we're talking about, the life that it should have, which is this great cult classic and great cult following that gets it there so that Disney realizes they can make oodles of money because that's what they give a shit about. And
Yeah.
maybe make a little Blumhouse studio, not necessarily Blumhouse, but like make their own little Blumhouse studio so you can make movies like this. And it doesn't have to be like, Mickey Mouse is up to Empty Man movies now. Great.
Dude,
now
that would be great though.
I mean,
That
granted,
be
I would
so
love
good.
to see the fucking Disney, the
Their
fucking
new
Magic
Halloween
Kingdom
specials.
and the
Mickey's
Empty
just
Man.
like, oh god, don't think his name. He's stabbing Minnie in the shower.
I would pay so much
They
money.
show like the skeleton go like pop out of the wall and come alive. And
Yeah, and it just goes,
start
oh
walking
yeah,
around.
and it's goofy.
Oh my god, I
Like,
would pay
oh,
so
Goofy.
much money to see that.
But
it's
I don't know.
we're into such a strange time for and I was I went to actually go see Willy's Wonderland in the
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because like I said, like I'm not saying the pandemic is over, but like where I live, it's essentially over. Like there's like enough people here that are vaccinated and that, you know.
Oh, dude, I gotta confirm. My Republican neighbor said over.
it's
Hoax.
over. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Well, as long as he thinks so.
Yeah.
I'll let LA know.
He
I
likes
went to,
flags, so I assume he knows.
I went to Willy's Wonderland, and you know, you read all these articles about how you're like the theaters are dead, nothing will ever. I went to a 7:00 fucking showing of Willy's Wonderland where every single seat in the entire theater was full.
Well, Nick
And
Cage,
I was-
come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nick
but I
Cage,
mean,
that's the point. I mean,
people
Nick Cage
people
beating up
love
animatronics.
yeah, Nick Cage, bad Chuck E. Cheese. Come on.
Exact same
I'll
thing
tell
when I
you,
went to see
that's
Drive
the
Angry. Exact same.
Yeah,
People were furious though at the end of Willy's. They were like, "Why didn't he speak?" Like that was they got really hung up on that. But the thing is
that's
that
your takeaway from Willy's Wonderland. That's a
yeah,
weird-
it's
Wow.
like
It's like, why was he fucking that pinball machine? That's like
'Cause it's
So,
hilarious.
that scene was unscripted. The dance scene. He
Yes.
just did that, and they were
I'm
like,
so glad I read that. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
God bless
So,
that
like,
man.
So like,
What? Wait.
Low key,
Wait.
low key, I'm friends with the director of Willy's Wonderland. Okay, so like,
Yeah.
I talk with him a lot, and he was like, yeah, there's this. Okay, can I even say this? Fuck it. Okay, so there's a scene.
Just say it.
There's a scene that is not in Willy's Wonderland that absolutely should have been in Willy's Wonderland. There were so many scenes where Nick Cage just improv stuff, and the director Kevin Lewis has had nothing but good things to say about working with Cage. He said he was on time every day, always there on time, and he would give like multiple versions of like a take. And for like when you go into the editing room, it's like here's this. You have a million things to choose from, and so like there were many scenes that he just was like, I have so many options. I don't even know which one's the best. It's great. So like
now
I
we
love
need the
when-
Snyder cut of Willy's
Yeah.
Wonderland.
Yeah, I need a Snyder cut of Willy's Wonderland.
But just imagine Nicolas Cage behaving that way, and you're like, every one of these scenes can so dramatically change the trajectory of this narrative.
yeah.
That's what Panos Cosmatos said about Mandy. He's like,
Okay.
Cage gave me everything from like the crazy Cage rage to like an Oscar performance. And I guess Cage told Panos that he's like, most people just go for the crazy, but you know, it's your movie.
He's the greatest
so.
actor of our time. I don't care.
Dude,
Who
I
it is.
that's-
legitimately love Nicolas Cage. Like,
I-
Yeah,
fucking
like,
do
we
too.
no joke
Yeah.
love Nicolas Cage.
It's
Yeah.
he's incredible. Like I'm sorry, like no actor is as prolific as that man.
But that's what I
No.
said. Tom Hanks couldn't do Willy's Wonderland. He couldn't
No.
do that movie. But Cage could
probably-
be the guy who sells Pioneer newspapers.
Cage could be Sully. Cage could be Sully and in Willy's Wonderland. Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Dude, imagine
Yes.
every Tom Hanks movie recast with Nicolas Cage. And
Castaway.
that's the
You know,
universe I would
Castaway's incredible that way.
live in. Dude.
Castaway. Yes. I'm at Nicolas Cage talking to a volleyball half the movie. Yes, please.
Totally
Bridge
banging
of
the volleyball, by
Spies.
the way.
Yeah.
Bridge of Spies.
Nicolas Cage just spills it right away. I don't care.
I digression. What I was saying is that like I think I think everyone was sort of talking about like the kind of doom and gloom of the theatrical experience, and I really don't see that happening. I think 6 months from now it's just gonna go back to the same. I don't think I listened to some lady fucking go off to her kid that they were not gonna pay $30 to see Raya on Disney Plus. Like they were just furious about that. I think 6 months from now, you know, maybe movies will kind of come out, but like I'm going to fucking go to a theater to see Mortal Kombat. I'll die to go see that in a theater. You know what I mean? Like I'll die, but it's just like these movies every
you beat
few
Goro
years,
and the final boss is just COVID. You're like, no.
Fatality.
I'm back. He doesn't know that I'm vaccinated. Like,
oh, that's your secret fatality.
All your Republican viewers just turn the thing off.
They know I'm from Indiana, so it's cool. I'm like a Blade. I walk between the political worlds. I'm a political day walker. No, but I mean, like my thing I don't miss like going to AMC to see like a fucking Aladdin.
Oh,
like if that disappeared, I mean, I have kids, so I'll never escape that. But if that disappeared, I wouldn't give a fuck, right? But the thought of going, like I used to go to this one screen theater in LA, the New Art. Yeah. And they just show like weird ass, like it'd be like, oh yeah, it's Wednesday, I'll go see Big Man Japan. Right? With like me and 6 weird guys. Like the thought of seeing this there on like, you know, oh, it's Friday night, I'll go watch this at the New Art. Like that's the shit that's never gonna go away. And especially like a really fucking cool movie like this, to hear like the sound on the big screen and all that. Like, yeah, this movie, I think my grandmother was a psychic. She was a hotline psychic, right? She would work at her trailer and just smoke and do fortune telling all day. She would have said, I think I have her gift. She would have said, this will be a cult classic for sure.
Agreed.
100%.
I would literally bet of every movie I've had this talk, me and my friend, he still won't pay me because at softball, he's like, I fucking guarantee Prometheus will be the greatest cult classic of all time. And I still text him all the time. And I was like, still no. And he's like, you got to give it a couple more years. But I was like, this one I would take the bet on. This will be a cult classic.
I agree.
Don't talk shit on Sir Ridley.
Hey, I'm just going to say that's the saddest I've ever been.
Be sure not to talk shit on a person who doesn't know how to turn left.
I thought that was going to be the best movie ever. So I'm a victim of myself, right? I saw the trailer and I was like, it's impossible. This won't be my favorite movie ever. So I went in with that level of expectation and I got less than that. So that's on me. That's on me.
The other thing that this movie has in its favor is that, like, along with the whole, you know, it's a weird film that's super long and the Disney merger and all of that, and the underrated thing that people will always say about it is that it came out in the middle of a pandemic. And people will always say that. They'll be like, oh, well, no one saw it because there was COVID. It was COVID. No one went to the theater and saw it. The trailer debuted a week before the movie came out. They did not give a shit. In fact, they cared so less about this movie. They cared so little about this movie that at the time, all of the remaining 20th century movies that Disney had began with 20th Century Studios. This still says Fox. They didn't even pay to change that. They did not even fucking pay to change Fox to Studios at the beginning of this movie.
That would have taken like 6 Raya buys, and they're like, fuck that.
They didn't print posters. They didn't print posters for it. Like if you go, I fucking hoard posters everywhere. And I try to get them and they did not print them. So it's like this fucking movie got shafted. And like, I think, look, man, the power of Twitter can do anything. Like if you get enough angry nerds together, they can bully Warner Brothers into doing just about anything. So like,
release the Empty Man on Blu-ray.
But make it 4x3 for the love
Disney,
of God.
fuck you. It's $30 behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, this piece will exist within 5 years. When someone's gonna write the remembering the lost year of cinema 2020. Oh, yeah. And like these 10 movies most explain what it was like. This movie is about a viral outbreak that's going to destroy society. And someone, because I didn't know this was filmed so long ago, but I'm telling you, someone's going to write, some 16-year-old kid who's going to work at whatever site runs our lives is going to say this was made exactly because of the pandemic. And it's going to have this huge thing. It's going to be the 2020 movie.
This is going to be like a big slash film article for sure. Like this will definitely be in there.
But what's the other movie that's going to compete with this is like the best of the lost year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I think the rest of them, like Candyman and all the movies I wanted, are just going to come out in 2021.
Right. Not too many movies were just dumped. In 2020.
Tenet was.
Tenet in a way. Yeah, but that was an experiment though.
Yes.
You know, they were like they were experimenting like can we do this? You know, who will come to this movie?
Yeah.
The answer was no.
Not a lot of people. But like to your point, Josh, about the theaters returning, overseas they seem to be. You know, and so I also believe that will continue because there's just too many people who love it. There's just too many people who love it, and like I really miss like for forever I would go to whatever movie was out Thursday night at 7 p.m. and I really miss just doing that. It didn't matter what the movie was. I just miss having that to do. You know, like going on some website and being like, "What hits VOD this weekend?" That sucks. Like, that's just, you know.
I miss having.
Well, then you're like, is it $3, $5, $12, $25?
I miss having a really convenient thing to leave the house for. Like that was the thing that I missed the most about going to the movie theaters is that I knew no matter what was going on, like, for instance, like my wife and I, like we had the kid. I'm like, well, if we don't want to go out to dinner, we can at least go see a movie. Like those are like the kind of things that I like about it is like, and to like, we were talking, I think a couple of days ago, I saw something pop up about Movie Phone and Movie Pass, sorry.
I was like, well, that's even sadder.
Not Movie Phone, Movie Pass. And Griffey and I were just like going back and forth, like lamenting, like the summer of Movie Pass might've been the greatest summer.
Well, because I had my second kid and my mother-in-law lived with me for 3 weeks. So I saw that fucking Winston Churchill movie like 4 days in a row. I was just like, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
There's the thing is my local theater has like it shut down for that first month.
Yeah.
And then it reopened over the summer and has sort of just been playing like over the summer. There was like a summer series where it like played all the Harry Potter and all the Matrix and all the Indiana Jones. So that was cool. But then like as soon as Tenet hit and they were like, the theaters are back open, but that didn't happen. Now my theater just plays like fucking IFC movies. So like right now it's like, well, I could go see My Salinger Year.
Better buy better buy in advance.
I just this week is gonna be such a, and you know my movie's an IFC. I love them, but like some movies just don't require the theatrical experience. And this week in particular, I think is going to be interesting, and it's going to be the first like quote unquote test because Godzilla versus Kong. Like I think you're going to see some big fucking numbers this week, and big by I mean you know I think it's going to broach 20 million. Where like last week.
I'm getting my vaccine the day that opens. I was like, am I just going to go right there with my 6-year-old? But dude, it'll never die. The theater's not fucking going anywhere. I mean, if anything, it'll make the theater stronger. That, like you said, maybe they'll play shit people actually want to see, like some things they won't waste time on.
Prometheus.
Here's a good example. Prometheus.
Don't start with that.
Here's a good example. Drive-in theaters have been around forever, but they also were kind of like dying, and like you know they would get shut down. In Ohio, I have one 20 minutes away. There's another one 40 minutes away. I go to the drive-in fairly often, actually. Last year, drive-ins were insanely profitable because everyone was like, oh shit, I can just stay in my car and watch movies. Last year, I saw Jaws and Jurassic Park back-to-back at a drive-in. It was amazing. A perfect drive-in double feature. And so they're still here. Drive-ins are still here.
Yeah.
Like your traditional, even if, like, let's just say by some miracle, Regal, AMC, Cinemark, all these places just die. There's always going to be people opening art house theaters, independent theaters. There's always going to be people trying to preserve that. And at least in our lifetimes, the theater will not die. But you know, the people who are going to stream or torrent movies, they're just going to do that. They're not going to and that's fine. Stay at home. I don't need you.
Yeah,
on your
good
cell
riddance.
phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
I
Honestly,
also
if those
just
are the
don't-
people that ruin the theater experience, I am totally fine with them staying home.
Well, especially a
Exactly.
movie like this, right? If I went to see Empty Man in a non-pandemic year, there'd be like 3 teenagers in front of me
Yes.
trying to get hand jobs and
Yep.
taking selfies with the screen. And you're like, you can do that at your house. Get the hand job in your basement and let me
Earlier-
come here and watch the fucking Empty Man. Dude, I'm telling you, at
Like
La Llorona, this
La
fucking
Llorona.
girl
La
kept
Llorona.
trying to time it and take selfies with a flash when La Lorna was on the screen. And then
Oh,
she would
no.
take time out to jerk her boyfriend off. And I was like, well, this is better than the movie, but what the fuck?
Oh my God.
So
that's
if those
horrible.
kids stay home, that's fine with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a more viable actual future potential is like shorter theater lifespans for
windows.
movies. You know,
Yeah.
like a 45-day window and then HBO Max, or you're in theaters for a month and then Amazon Prime, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's a more viable thing that might actually happen.
Yeah.
Totally. Like a 40 instead of like, and I mean, because it's fucking annoying. Like it was fucking annoying with The Empty Man in October to having seen this. And then it had to wait the traditional 90-day window to just be like, all right, people, like, just watch the movie.
You know what
Freaky.
that reminds me of, Josh? That
What?
reminds me of seeing Split at the AFI Fest. Because
Yeah.
I saw Split, okay? So I know the ending of Split.
Fuck you, Chris.
And-
I saw it at Fantastic Fest.
Yeah,
which was
you
a
did. You
month.
saw it.
It was a
You
month
did.
before.
You did, yeah.
And
You saw
Shyamalan
it
comes in.
faster.
Oh, yeah. Well, us
Yeah.
peasants saw it with teenagers jerking off at the
Yeah,
end.
us dum-dum saw it with a couple of guys with their cell phones out taking selfies. So, you know.
Oh,
Fucking-
James McAvoy's shirtless body.
Shyamalan
It was
came
me.
out and
It was
was
me.
like, he was like the twist of the movie, this crazy twist that has made everybody silent. He's like, please don't tell anybody. And the movie doesn't come out for 6 months.
Hmm. Yeah, no, like I'm the biggest motherfucking Unbreakable fan. Like I'm absurdly into Unbreakable, okay?
Fucking love
like
that movie.
stupidly into Unbreakable. And I'm sitting there at the AFI Fest, literally like as James Newton Howard's Unbreakable theme starts to play, I'm sitting next to this guy and I'm like, oh my fucking God. And I like grab him and I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, what? What's what? I'm like, just wait, it's coming. I know exactly what happens. And so like
Halfway through the
see-
movie,
yeah.
he's like, I got to get out of this theater. I
It-
got to run
it-
away from this guy.
Yeah, you know, he was my friend. I knew who he was. But
Oh, okay. I thought you grabbed a
Yeah.
random stranger.
no,
I was
no.
like, God, that is.
It was
I
not
was
like
really
a
hoping
citizen.
it was. I was hoping it was like
just
that
a
Tommy
citizen.
boy, like, I wish we'd known each other. This is a little awkward.
Right. No, so like it again, like you said, you saw Empty Man, and then you couldn't tell anyone. You couldn't like. You felt like
I
you
did.
were,
I
like,
told
out
Twitter.
on a limb. You felt like you were out on a limb, though.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, like this movie's kind of neat. You should see it. And like, yeah, whatever. It failed. It has a
I just-
46. It has a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It didn't. It
Don't you
didn't,
know?
Chris. It didn't. It did not. At the time, I felt like a fuck. I felt like everyone just thought I was being an asshole because at the time, for some reason, there was only like 2 or 3. Or I think there was 6, just enough to
Wow.
have a rating, and it had an 11%.
Oh,
So it had
God.
a fucking 11%, and I was like, "This is the best. This is my favorite movie of the year." And I just thought that people thought I was fucking around with them. It was
Yeah.
like, no. It was super satisfying to watch it come out on VOD, and then like it's still hasn't been reviewed a ton, but it's gone from an 11 to a 50.
It
I
will
I
be.
think
made
it
it a
will-
50 today. Today I made it a 50.
But no, I mean,
It
I
was a
keep seeing it
46.
on Twitter, right? The people are like, I'll give this. I keep hearing about Empty Man. I'll give it. And then the next tweet, oh my God, Empty Man kicks ass.
Yeah.
But like a bunch of people said, like me, they're like, I went in blind. I haven't seen shit. So I don't know, man.
didn't see the
I just,
trailer
I
either.
feel like this is gonna be like a big one. And I think it will be tied to this pandemic year in a way that will help it.
Yeah.
You know how like The Wretched came out and they're like, The Wretched won the box office for 16 weeks in a row because it was the only thing at the drive-ins.
Right,
The Wretched
yeah.
got a ton of run that it never would have seen if
exactly.
not for this. And I think Empty Man, in a weird, maybe not super fulfilling way for the director, is going to have an advantage from that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That will
100.
help propel it a lot.
I know that like technically, like on paper, you don't want to be the filmmaker who makes the movie that doesn't make its money back, that gets thrown away like this. But like to be the filmmaker that earns the respect of people who actually then do what the marketing was supposed to have done. Because like that's what we're doing, you know, and no one's asking us to. So like that's what you want. You want people to like kind of like get behind your movie and be the people who push for it.
And the fact that it doesn't have to wait 10 years, because like most like that comment, you know, most cult classics sort of take 10 years to do that.
Sure.
This seems to be happening now, and it's a reason why I sort of have been like, you know, screaming to the heavens, and every person I know, it's like, watch this thing, because I really think I would love to like go to Fantastic Fest or go to any of these things next year and have a bunch of people be like, fuck, did you see The Empty Man? Like, it's awesome. Because, you know,
I could
that's
see
like
Fantastic Fest reprogramming it and just showing it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's gonna
Like
be a
plays-
midnight movie for a long time, for sure.
For sure.
Plays at the new Bev. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
It
Just
should. I
imagine
mean,
you're
it
like,
gets
hey,
it.
dudes, it's Friday. We can have an edible and go watch this movie. And by the time they start the movie an hour in, we'll be tripping. You know what I mean? Like, I think this will be a perfect experience for midnight movies. I don't know. I honest to God, I would not have watched it, except for you're like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, we'll get an episode out of it if nothing else. And it fucking blew me away.
Really worth a watch.
You guys like weird shit. And Chris likes weird shit. And I was like, let's just talk about this weird shit. Quickly getting high in a theater. Like, I have the most terrifying story. When I first moved to LA, I was there for kind of like a year, and then my girlfriend moved from Wyoming to LA with me. And so she had only been in LA for, I don't know, a couple weeks. And I made her, it was when Kevin Smith's Tusk came out, and they had like they had strains of Tusk weed that you could buy at dispensaries. One was called Walrus Yes, and the other one was
that
called
guy
Mr.
never fucking misses a marketing beat ever.
No. So we bought a ton of it, and we went to the AMC 16 in Burbank, and we hid in the parking garage, and we got stoned out of our minds and went to go see Tusk at like 10 p.m. and in the middle of the movie, some guy had a stroke.
Oh my God.
and they shut the movie off, and the paramedics had to come in and take him out. And we were tripping balls. And yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, you can't replicate that in your house.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
my biggest
terrifying.
mistake was I got high and went and saw the Antichrist movie.
Oh shit.
And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't know that could happen to penises.
They're smashing his balls.
I was like, good Lord. It was a horrifying night at the movies.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
That's terrible.
Anyone else? Any closing words on The Empty Man, guys?
Watch it.
Oh my God. Yeah, just check out the movie, have an open mind. Don't forget about the title, forget about the fact that it sounds like a generic creepypasta movie. Be open to a longer film to, set some time to pay attention to it, and know that like you're not going to get concrete answers. It's not going to be like, here's what the movie is, here's the big reveal. It's just a very open-ended, like, just experience that feels like it can evolve and change, and it has so many different interpretations. It's just the kind of filmmaking that I want to see more of. I want to see more people with like real fucking set of iron balls that like make horror movies like this, and they don't care about what other people say about it. They put it out there, and it's really inspiring.
Agreed.
Put your bone whistle on the table and let it go.
Let Charlotte Gainsbourg smash your balls.
Oh, woo! Dude, that was a night. I was like, I'm gonna sleep on the couch. I don't want to be next to my lady. What I would say about this too, guys, if you haven't watched it somehow and you're fucking listening to the end of this, I don't know. This is one of those movies I really like because it's pretty rare. I feel like people watch movies very passively, right? Like we're all kind of like watching a movie, but like we're doing other stuff, especially in pandemic. We're always multitasking. This is the one I enjoyed it so much more the second time. I just was like, I got to shut my phone all the fucking way off. And it's such it's one of those rare movies where I'm like, you really do gain a lot more that way, right? And it sounds absurd because film snob bros are like, you gotta fucking watch every frame of every. You're like, I get it. I don't have to see every fucking frame of, whatever, Wreck-It Ralph 2 or whatever, right? But like this one, there's so many, and they could all be kind of false starts, right? And that's kind of the cool thing, is to just get totally lost and let your mind go nuts on these various loose threads. So that would be my plea, is if you have watched it once, watch it again and absolutely shut the world out, which is very rare for all of us. Yep.
Rent it, pay for it, talk about it.
Yeah.
Review it. If you don't like it, don't review it.
Especially if you're certified on Rotten Tomatoes.
Anti-Yelp.
The children from the brood will come and kick the shit out of you if you make the Rotten Tomatoes score go lower.
Josh is gonna bring his girlfriend's sister, brothers to come kick your ass.
Subject them to some more nonsense.
On Josh's point, I don't want to like elongate your podcast but on Josh's point about pay for it, I just want to say one thing about pay for it. So I made this video about it, and I wanted to get a copy of the film to show clips from the film. So I buy the movie on Amazon Prime. It's the only way to buy it. So I'm like, all right, I bought it. I feel not like a dick torrenting it. So I look for a torrent of The Empty Man so that I can put the footage into my review. I look for a whole day. Every single torrent is cropped pan and scan 16:9.
Oh my God.
I don't know why. The movie is in 235. Every torrent I find is cropped pan and scan. No idea why. It's like I'm in 1997. So what I do is I actually have to find some like sketchy screen capturing software to play my Amazon. To play my Amazon like thing in 235, screen capture my screen. Thing is, it won't go above 480p. No fucking idea why. So I have in my review a screen captured 480p rip of The Empty Man, simply because I cannot bear the thought of showing the cropped version in my review. But so don't torrent the movie is what I'm saying. Pay for it so you can get the 235 shots.
Jesus H. I mean, technically the Empty Man got his message out through a coma guy. So like, however you get it, like the messenger is not as important.
Also, if you're directing a movie and you have the ability to put like a young, attractive actress in a baby doll dress with the latex gloves, like just go for it. I'll buy it. That's
the next creepypasta movie right there.
I have changed all of my scripts retroactively to feature this. So.
This is that classic, they reboot Wishmaster, and it's just you being attacked by bold-headed white dress ladies. And he's like, I knew I should have taken it careful.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it.
Lobo, thanks for foisting this on all of us. It was excellent, man.
Worth it.
Yeah.
You are the perfect Empty Man messenger, I guess.
Just like some poor idiot.
Yeah, you're a tulpa.
Go watch movies ironically.
We receive, you transform.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking Twitter.
Well, thank you guys very much for making the time. We'll catch you guys later.